this is Scott Kokenauer with Coffeeprops, and we are with Alden of Crossings Coffee Roasters, and you will see them on Instagram as Crossings Coffee. So, Alden, thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to talk with us.
Oh, my pleasure, Scott. It's a pleasure to talk with you today.
So we are just connecting people who have a common appreciation for and a passion, expressive passion for a great cup of coffee. And so one of the first questions we ask in interviews is, how did you discover your love for coffee? What's the story that brought you to coffee?
You know, it's pretty funny. So, ever since I was in high school, I was, on the track to med school. That was what I wanted to pursue. It was my dream since I was a little kid. And, I'd spent almost my entire working career, in research labs, in hospitals. And that was kind of the life that I knew. And when I went to college, my dad and I, we still like to keep in touch and stay connected. Since I was only going to school, about 20, 25 minutes away from home, on Sundays, we would meet up for coffee and kind of just catch up in the week and kind of just, had that relationship. And, it started out, we would, just go to Starbucks or, go to Panera Bread and have a simple coffee with breakfast. And, we soon started to venture out and exploring different coffee shops and in the area. And I think the one thing that struck out to me was the really polarizing culture that one coffee shop had that could be completely different from another coffee shop just, down the street even. And, there were people who resonated with one shop and then resonated with the other shop. And I must have been driving home one day and I noticed this shop on the 101 called Ironsmith Coffee Roasters. And I stopped in with my sister, and, what was meant to be just a quick, grab and go ended up being this incredibly in-depth conversation with the owner, Matt De La Rosa, who just opened his doors and was just giving me this wonderful story about how they got started in the coffee culture and what it meant for him. And, I think all these experiences, coffee with my dad and learning that community and the welcoming culture that, I experienced from that just completely, opened the doors open for me. And, it wasn't long after that when I realized that, I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to see what I could contribute to that industry myself.
Well, that's a really cool story. That something you're going a totally different direction, and coffee stopped you in your tracks, and you've changed your entire life decisions. So, for the listeners, where are we talking? Where in the world are you?
So I'm based out of San Diego, California.
Okay. Good. And that's where Ironsmith is as well, I believe, right?
It is in the North County area, Encinitas, for those who are familiar.
Okay. So tell us about Crossings Coffee. What's the significant about the name, and what do you guys do?
So Crossings was, something that had been kind of a little seed in my head, but, I knew absolutely nothing about the industry. I had never worked in coffee before. All I knew was I really liked drinking it. And so as much as I wanted to go out and finally start the company and just start selling coffee and sharing what I had experienced with other people, there was this enormous hill ahead of me. And, but at the time I had no idea. That relationship that I had with Ironsmith grew. I spent a lot of time there, and they eventually took me on and they trained me as a barista. And, and Matt, who was the roaster, he, inspired me to, learn more about the roasting process and learn about the mechanics behind what happens behind the bar and all these things. And so, I eventually bought a sample roaster, and he taught me how to sample roast. And he, eventually I gained enough experience where he brought me on and I started roasting for Ironsmith. And, fast forward a year and a half or so later, and, I'm still roasting for Ironsmith. And right around the same time, I felt that I had accumulated enough knowledge and education about what it meant to be in coffee and what I wanted to contribute, where I wanted to launch Crossings. And so Crossings officially launched back in last November. And it's definitely still been a work in progress, but basically it's, for us, it's about embodying the culture, the industry, the ideals of sustainability, and, but always focusing on how we can take every little step and make it just a little bit better. I come from a very, research-oriented background, and so for me, I want to understand more about the extraction process, more about the chemistry change during the roasting process, and how we can use that knowledge to not only make a better cup of coffee, but make that, consistent every single time.
You mentioned just kind of in passing that it's still a work in process, and I would encourage you to always leave it there. Always be in process, always be a work in process,
Absolutely.
always be seeking that next best batch of roasting, and that. So you sell products. You sell Colombia right now, and Costa Rica, and a Costa Rica micro lot, and a hat, a trucker hat. And I'm looking at your website as we're talking here. So in this research mode and your interest in coffee, the way it's come about, as you think about the whole coffee industry, what is it, if you could change one thing and make it even better, what about the industry or culture would you change?
That was something that had, stumped me for a little while, because that's something that I had to think about for a long time. Every single day you're thinking, well, what can I do to change? What can I do to, not only make myself stand out, but, have some positive influence. And I think the one thing that I want to change, or that I want to contribute at least to seeing that culture change, is, again, a more direct approach to understanding the science and the chemistry and what's going on when we pass water through coffee, what's going on in the roasting chamber. But even after that, what's going on with that coffee grinds after we're done with it? I think for most of us, it's very easy for us to toss those grinds in the trash, toss our bottles in the recycling bin, but, wipe our hands when we're done. But what's happening from the moment that that cherry is picked to when we're tossing those grinds away? And I think being more aware of what's happening in that entire process is something that I want to pass along, and something that I want to see change, in the entire industry.
Wow, good for you. That's really cool. Now on Instagram, where we can find you is Instagram. Your account name is Crossings Coffee, and
Correct.
your website. Tell us what's your website, your URL.
So the website, it's kind of funny. So the website is crossings.coffee. A lot of people say .com. So no, just crossings.coffee. As a safety, people can go to crossingscoffee.com and it'll still reroute you to the right place. But I think it's kind of cool that we can get domains these days with, .coffee.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, okay, so I want to leave you with the question: what is your all-time favorite coffee drink?
I'd say my go-to, and I have one at least every day, is an iced Americano.
Iced Americano. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and that's from Crossings Coffee, or do you go somewhere else?
You know what? Actually, I'm a big fan of the Columbia Espresso we have at Ironsmith.
Okay. All right.
So if you're in the area, definitely make the trip.
Okay. Well, Alden, it's been a pleasure to spend a little bit of time with you over in San Diego. If you're in that area, or if you're traveling in that area and you're listening to this and you hear about Crossings Coffee, now you know a little bit behind the story of the shop and the roaster. And go in there, make yourself known to Alden, and say hey. And we're glad you shared this time with us.
Thank you, Scott. It was really a pleasure.